Welcome aboard. Thank you guys for hanging out with us today. Andy, thank you for spending some time with us on a Monday afternoon. And I'd love to introduce Andy for a sec. There's a lot to say. I'm going to talk about some highlights. I'd love to hear a little bit about how you got started. But Andy, I did a hand count, Andy. I did some research. Andy has directed over 600 episodes of television. I think it's over 650 and maybe higher than that. Andy, I don't, what are we talking here?
Somewhere in that ballpark. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's north of 650.
That's okay. Terrific. So Andy has directed over 250 episodes of major television. Most recently, Andy, you directed 9 episodes of Last Man Standing. Andy served, for those that don't know Andy, served as director and executive producer of Home Improvement, where you directed 81 episodes. Many of you guys know the show. It won the People's Choice Award for favorite comedy 4 times. Some of the other awesome highlights are Andy directed over 70 episodes of the multiple Emmy-winning Spin City. That's where I first got to know you when you were working on Spin City after I graduated high school and we connected. Yeah, sorry. Andy was the director and executive producer of Young and Hungry, directing 50 episodes. 76 episodes of the award-winning hit comedy Hot in Cleveland, 37 episodes of The X's, other shows include Engagement, The Odd Couple, Dr. Ken, Man with a Plan. Some of you guys may have been a part of some of these productions. Of the countless pilots Andy's directed are Herman's Head, Teen Angel, The Hughleys. Hughleys or is it the
Hughley? Yeah.
Hughleys.
D.L. Hughley.
Okay, the Hughleys, yeah. My Wife and Kids, According to Jim, etc. Andy's work has been recognized by Teen Choice, People's Choice, Humanitas, Genesis, SAG-AFTRA, Golden Globe Awards, many others. I grew up in high school, hearing about Andy's successes throughout high school. Andy was a graduate of the same all-boys high school that I attended in Boston, Belmont Hill School, and I reached out to you, Andy, upon graduation, and I believe it was Spin City. You always, this is the really, really cool emotional thing, was you always got back to me, where many industry professionals, I know many of you have had this experience, that we try to connect with, don't necessarily respond. I was thrilled to finally meet you in person in 2004 on the set of Quintuplets, where Andy directed 19 episodes. So Andy, I am very grateful to you for your kindness and generosity to me and this community over the years. You've generously given your time. You've worked with our actors in your USC directing class, of which you're still doing that. You invited us to your sets to watch your work and learn how a multi-camera episode is created. Listen, I know some of the background. You started your career in New York, working with Hal Prince. It was Hal Prince, right? Who was my neighbor growing up in Boston, by the way. We can talk about that in Brookline. Yeah. And you know, and on and on. And Andy received his BA from Harvard University. But Andy, if you could maybe start and talk a little bit about your, how you got started in New York and the role Harvard played in that. Tell us a little bit about how you got started. And again, thank you for being here and sharing your time with us today.
Thank you, Joseph. I'm not sure whether the intro made me happy or sad.
Oh, shit.
Oh, my God.
Sorry.
My past just flashing in front of me. And all those years and all those episodes. I actually, for my class, I kind of look up episodes, and I'll be watching an episode of Home Improvement. And I might be 20 minutes into it, and I don't even know if I directed that one. I don't even remember it. But it's crazy. No, I mean, I didn't go to Harvard for, the entertainment industry, even though I loved it. I just never took it seriously and I thought by the time you got to go to college, you needed to kind of be serious. And so I was pre-med at Harvard. And that didn't last long. I knew it wasn't for me. And I quickly started to get involved in the theater at Harvard. Which was not an academic pursuit. There was no In those days, there was no theater department at Harvard. There was no film and television department at Harvard. It was all, anything you wanted to do in those areas had to be self-generated, self-motivated, which I did. And I started directing a lot on their main stage, which became the American Repertory Theater soon after I left there. So I was fortunate to be able to direct there on that stage twice before the professionals took over. And then I was lucky, I met Harold Prince at Harvard when he was in Boston directing Pacific Overtures, and which then went on to Broadway. And then he came to Harvard and did a little seminar like this, not on Zoom,
right.
for a handful of students. And it was one of those moments. It was one of those seminal moments in my life. I said, I need to be around this man. I need to learn from this man. And partly that was seeing the show and how I felt about his work in that show. So I wrote him a letter, and he responded. I think I got some of my responding genes from someone like Hal, who always responds. And then I went, he said to me, actually, he said, I'll be leaving the country for 6 months. I'm going to Vienna to direct the movie version of A Little Night Music with Elizabeth Taylor. It did not turn out well, but he says, but I'll be back in the fall. Come to New York and meet me. So I went and met him, told him I didn't want to go to law school or business school or medical school like all my friends. And he thought that was kind of funny. And he said, well, why don't you, when you graduate, give me a call and we'll see what we can find for you. Long story short, I started off as a gopher in his office, doing every little chore you could imagine, and then became an assistant stage manager, assistant casting director on shows like On the 20th Century, Evita, Sweeney Todd, Merrily We Roll Along. And, I looked at it like this. I could have gone to Yale drama, but instead I went to the Harold Prince School of Theater. And for me, that was the best directing, university I could have gone to be with him, to see him put together On the 20th Century from scratch, Evita, Sweeney Todd, to watch that happen, to see the way he worked with writers, designers, musicians. It was incredible. And the thing he taught me most of all was never limit your dreams, never limit your imagination, which was a challenge once I got into the TV world, by the way. But I did that for a few years, and then I wanted to direct. And he said to me, well, there's only one director in this company, me. So if you want to direct, you need to go out and find some material. So I found material I found friends from college who had come to New York who were writers, and they were writing things, and they needed somebody to come on board and, try to get it to happen. And so I had one friend who left school actually early to be in a chorus line, and he had written a show about stand-up comedians, and he wanted me to direct it. And I think a lot of that was he was hoping some of the Harold Prince magic had rubbed off on me. Yeah. And we started the journey, 3-year journey of getting that show on, which it eventually did. It was called Three Guys Naked from the Waist Down. It was starring Scott Bakula, who just recently finished his run on CSI New Orleans, but I directed him years ago in Quantum Leap, long before most of you were born. And that show went off Broadway. It was a award-winning show off Broadway. I had a ticket price that I could not afford, but nor any of my friends, and none of my friends saw it, but other people saw it. And then I did a few other shows off Broadway. Then I did a show in Pasadena that was seen by the Lincoln Center. The Lincoln Center people, not Lincoln Center. What's the theater in Washington, D.C.? I'm blanking. The big theater, but Kennedy Center. Roger Stevens saw it, and he wanted to bring it in and then go take it to Broadway. And it opened the same year Phantom of the Opera opened. We lasted 3 weeks. They're still going. So there you go. But that was sort of when that show closed on Broadway. When I was here in Pasadena, I had made some contacts. People had come to the show that were in the TV and film business. One of them was a guy named Alan Burns, who had created the Mary Tyler Moore Show. And he said to me, he called me up. He said, I just saw your show, and I think you'd be a great TV director. Come into my office and talk to me. At the time, I was a little snobby. I said, well, I'm a theater director. I don't really do TV, But he was doing a show with Scott Bakula, ironically. And I observed. And then before I went back to New York to have my show open in New York, I directed one episode of the show, thinking I would never come back because my show was going to be a big hit on Broadway. Well, it wasn't. And I came back, and Alan had another show. And basically, he shepherded me in the beginning. He was a great mentor, introduced me to all the right people. And, after the first year of Home Improvement, they were looking for another director. And someone who had been on Alan's show that I observed on remembered me and knew they were looking for a theater type director for that show. And so I met with them, and they gave me one episode to direct, and that turned into, how many did you say?
I have here 81 episodes. Does that sound about right?
I'll believe you.
Yeah.
And that was it. And I was always sort of like, I did kind of the odd episode before Home Improvement, but I knew that to really get somewhere, you needed a parentheses. I just feel like, everybody needs a parentheses in their life. It's like Stephen Jaws, Spielberg,
Yeah.
And for me, it became Home Improvement, and that was my parentheses. And I rode that puppy for a long way. And so along the way, I've directed a few feature films, but multi-camera comedy has really sort of been my go-to. It's just one of those things that once that train left the station and I was on it, it was hard to get off. And I've been very, very lucky. I've been on great shows. I've been on shows with writers that appreciate directors. And I know a lot of producer writers in the TV world don't appreciate directors who know how to talk to actors.
Yeah.
That's in short supply for any of you that have been on TV shows and didn't really get great feedback or direction. I feel you. I've been, just lucky to be on those shows where they believe that directors should direct and writers should write and actors should act, and it should all be a great collaborative situation. And those situations, Jim Belushi, that weren't that way, I stepped away from very quickly. Yeah. Because I knew I wasn't going to be able to do my best work, if I wasn't in that kind of a situation. The feature films I've done were so satisfying creatively, I have to say. They brought me back to, sort of my theater days where you could be so creative. I just loved waking up in the morning at the crack of dawn and knowing you had a blank page, and you were going to shoot something that was going to be in the can by the end of the day and be a piece of a puzzle that you'd be putting together for months. That was very, very gratifying. I found it to be, I was someone who found it difficult to mix career with family. and a feature career for me, year after year after year would not have been in line with what I wanted to have as a fit for my family and my kids. So TV was perfect for me. I got the best of everything.
Thank you.
So
Andy.
that's kind of it.
Before I get to some questions, because I want to get there soon as we can. The guiding belief that we have as a community is that prioritizing fun leads to massive career and personal success. When you prioritize fun, I'd love to know which projects were the most fun and what contributed to that feeling or environment of fun on set, or was everything that you did fun? Just talk a little bit about, the importance or the value of fun in your life and your career.
Well, it was everything for me. That's sort of what I bring to it. If I can't be laughing and if I can't be enjoying myself, I don't feel like I can create the kind of an environment that is necessary to let actors feel free to be funny. I mean, the thing about being funny is I think it is for actors, you have to really expose yourself. Because it's like one of those things, like if it's drama, you don't really know whether you're getting the reaction you should be getting. If it's comedy and no one's laughing, you're not doing well, right? So it's the instant, critic is the room that is not responding to what you're doing. And one of the things I've always loved about comedy is that barometer of laughter. I always said laughter is our currency. That's what we live on. So I always believed that a loose environment was the best environment. And for the most part, everywhere I stayed, those shows that you've listed multiple episodes.
Yes.
They were obviously the best experiences. I mean, Home Improvement, because it was my first kind of big hit, and it had everything that went with it, was the award shows and all the accolades, and that was the days when people watched network television, and we had 21 million people watch us every week, as opposed to now 1 million. You have a hit.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we got 1 million viewers. We're a sensation. Tim Allen would come in if we had less than 20 million viewers. He would be depressed all day. But Tim was so funny, and Tim was one of those people. He had to be laughing. Someone said to me before I directed the show, said, "I'll give you one piece of advice: laugh at Tim, but don't fake it because he'll know." Oh
God, yeah.
And fortunately, he's funny, and so it was easy to laugh and to create an environment that was funny. I mean, Hot in Cleveland was one of the best experiences I've ever had because of those 4 women. It was a dream to work with, Betty White is like, people say to me, "What's Betty White like?" I said, "She's everything you would like her to be like."
Yeah.
She's exactly, if you imagine what you want Betty White to be like is in real life, that's what she's like.
She's what you'd expect.
She's absolutely, and she's just, and it's funny, sometimes the writers would give me notes to give her, in a joke area moment, and I would look at the writer and go, "That's Betty White."
Yeah.
And Michael J. Fox was that way. He was like the younger version of Betty White. Is he could make anything funny.
On Spin City,
and everything he's done.
Yeah.
And with Michael, I would, in between takes, I'd be walking on the set to give him a note. And he'd go, no, I got it. I didn't even open my mouth. And he would try something different, because he knew the joke didn't land. And he didn't want it rewritten. And he would do something, and it was like magic. And Betty was very similar. They would like to write, hip jokes for Betty. And Betty would say to me, "What's TikTok?" And I said, look, guys, if we have to explain to Betty what TikTok is, it's not a good joke for her.
Yeah.
Okay? Come up with another joke.
Yeah.
So I've basically had great experiences. When they haven't been good, I've removed myself.
That's really an important thing, is to saying no and, removing yourself from a toxic situation, because that little bit of aggravation is going to be a lot more.
Well, it changes my whole inner chemistry, and I can feel when I feel sort of tense or something is building up. I said, well, I can't even possibly begin to do my best work now, because I'm like, I did a movie with Burt Reynolds, and he can't defend himself, obviously, but in this forum, but it was such a toxic environment that he created. It really affected, my work. And, fortunately, the rest of the cast was like phenomenal, like Imelda Staunton and Derek Jacobi. And so I had these wonderful actors around me to kind of buffer this very, very toxic human being, but it definitely affected my work and just the environment. So I try to stay away from that.
That's the project, A Bunch of Amateurs. Is that one? Yes.
Uh-huh.
Last quick question, and I always use this, and we work on a lot of multi-camera within this community. Actors, who are series lead actors that are bringing their pieces in, actors doing auditions, and whatever style we're working on, single camera, hybrid, VR, motion capture, multi-camera. Andy, you said once years ago, you called it Mick Theater, which was terrific. We talk about it with regards to being, the actors that are on it describe it as bigger, louder, faster, funnier, or lifted jokes, grounded emotions. How would you describe, if you were going to sort of personally tell an actor the space that they can have fun and go crazy inside when they work on multi-camera, how would you describe it other than Mick Theater, which was terrific?
Well, the interesting thing is I've always kind of pushed back on the louder, faster, funnier, because I just don't believe that that's the key to comedy. You look at Golden Girls, the key to comedy there was cut to B. Arthur just making a face, to her reactions, and I still believe that the best comedy is truth. It's still about truth and a little pain, and so there are moments where it has to have size to it. But I'm always like, I probably, if I looked at one of those 650 episodes, there might be some that are over the top, but that isn't what I gravitated to. It had to be grounded, but it was more theatrical. Let me just say that, because look, there's a big difference. I don't even believe comedy's here. I just feel like, comedy is here, and like, I remember going to the movie theater and seeing My Big Fat Greek Wedding, and I didn't know who directed it at the time that I saw it. Okay. And I'm watching it thinking, God, this director knows how to direct comedy. I can see the people are in more than one person's in a shot, and I can see the comedy. And then, roll credits and see that, a sitcom director had directed it. Rob Reiner is a great example of, somebody who came from sitcoms, and all his great movies that were comedic, they had size to them, Billy Crystal could have been was a sitcom actor, but he kept the truth there. Yeah. So, it's funny that tonight in my class, we're at the point where the directors who've been working on their scenes now for this whole semester, tonight is the night we talk about it's their last rehearsal with their cast and their scenes. Tonight's the night they unlock the comedy.
Oh.
And the thing is, I don't allow them to do that until they've found the truth. And what inevitably happens along the process of directing these scenes, is they suddenly have realized that all the comedy has been sucked out of the scene. And I feel that, any success, there's always that moment, like in a week of a sitcom, or in a scene in a movie, what you're doing, there's a moment where you go, oh my God, I've killed it. We've talked about it, and we've examined it, and we've talked about the characters, and we've sucked out all the comedy. And that's sort of a necessary part of the process that you have to get to, so that when you unlock it, it explodes. It's like Michael J. Fox once said to me, give me one foot in reality and my other foot will go wherever you want me to.
Wow,
and
that's really cool.
That was his way of saying it. You want me to be broad? You want me to do a pratfall? Just give me a foot in reality and I'm there.
Yeah. And is there a specific note that you would give? I remember watching you on set. Would you tell an actor on set if it was kind of flat and it needed to be punched up a little bit? What would you say?
It really depends on the actor. I mean, there are actors I could go up to and go, "That's the best you got." I mean, I would have that. I had that kind of relationship with them that I could challenge them.
Cool.
I'd say,
yeah.
I'd say, hey, come on, there's funny here, guys. Everybody, it's like a wake, and so if you had the right, people and you knew, it's really about knowing your actor and different actors respond, with Tim, sometimes it was a matter of, I mean, Tim, I got to give him a note because he's not making this moment funny. I said, Tim, how about the words? How about actually, doing what's written?
Yeah.
So I often used sort of, I don't want to say sarcasm, but I was never big on, here's the line reading, read it like this.
Right.
I wanted to frame it in some way, or come in with an idea. What if you try to, blah, 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 as if you were, popping popcorn. I don't know, anything,
yes.
Any image that I could give them. But I was never big on do it like this.
You were so wonderful. A couple of years ago, you came into one of our classes and you started to work with the actor. It was such a joy. Always kind, and I would love to open it up to our community right now. If you guys have some questions, raise your hand. Click the participant section. Raise your hand and jump on up, and we'll bring you up and. Love to hear your questions. So don't be shy. It's so good to see so many of you guys. I just went back to gallery and I saw so many wonderful members of our community here from all over the world. Yes. Okay. So I can see your hands, but also go to the participant section so we can have a list of those folks. But what I did see was Maria Fry. Maria Fry, I'm going to bring you up. If Maria, you're going to add a spotlight here. Maria, if you could introduce yourself and ask your question. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Joseph. Thank you, Andy, so much for coming here, being with us. A wealth of information, and love your work. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I have a couple questions to ask you. First question is, and you've kind of talked about this, but what is a common mistake for actors new to multicam that you've noticed in that?
Well, you went mute. Yeah, I think that that not making strong choices. I really think that you have to be sort of willing to fail, or you can't succeed in multi-comedy. I think that in comedy in general. And so I just think that making strong choices for the character, sometimes even just for the line. My favorite actors would be those actors that when we would do a table read, it was like Christmas listening to them read the script. It was like, oh my God, I just never heard the line like that. I never expected that take, and I think that's one thing. You can't be shy. You can't be flat. I think the worst thing is flat, safe.
Yes.
And I just, so strong choices is the biggest thing for me. And also on the flip side of that is, don't chew the scenery. because if you think that, oh, I'm in a sitcom now and I've got to just like, go crazy. That's, again, if it's coming out of nowhere, just being just big for big's sake, or broad for, just to be broad because you think I'm in a sitcom now and I have to be broad. That's a mistake too.
One of the things we talk about, Maria, you may have gone mute, but we'll see. One of the things we talk about a lot is, like in life, what we say is a different event than what we mean. And I think a lot of actors, try to make their choices based on the surface of the text, but aren't really asking themselves, saying there's a difference between what we say and what we mean. Martin Landau had this great quote, the text is only what a character is willing to share, willing to reveal. The 90% they aren't willing to reveal is what we do for a living. And we talk about dangerous choices that go against the grain of what everyone else is going to do. And those consistently stand out. Andy, do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, look, I've done so many network test auditions. No, I was just saying in all these, network tests that I've been to, it's that surprising take on the character, on the scene, on the lines, the way they present themselves. Those are the ones that always score. So I absolutely, you just have to be bold with your choices. But again, like I said, the skill is, no matter what choice you make, it's still believable as that character. I mean, no matter what Michael J. Fox would do, it was always within the world of this character. It's like he said, give me 1 foot, and that's the same with the performance. If you can hold 1 foot in the reality of this character, let the other foot just fly.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Maria. We'll come back to you if we can hear you again. I would love to keep going, and I see Charlie Parker. Charlie Parker, I'm gonna bring you up. Charlie, if you could introduce yourself, I'm going to add a spotlight to you here, and ask your question. Hi, Charlie.
Hey, hi, Andy. Nice to meet
Charlie.
you. Hi, I'm Charlie. I watched a lot of Home Improvement and Last Man Standing. Long story, I used to take care of this old woman who had the hots for Tim Allen, so she would watch it. And it was a great time. But I was wondering, because I'm thinking you came into Last Man Standing after Molly of Frame left, right?
Yes.
So I was wondering, as a director, one new to that show, but then also with a recast of a character that'd been there so long, what was that dynamic like for you?
Well, like you said, I had never directed Molly, but so, it was a struggle for everybody because this actress, who replaced her was wonderful, but it was bizarre also for everybody. First of all, she was blonde, and she everything about her was different. So I found myself kind of balancing, making her comfortable in this new situation, trying to almost treat her like she'd been on the show for 8 years, so that she didn't constantly feel like the outsider, because they didn't change her character. She was still, you know what I mean? It's not like, it was
a
kind
bold
of
move.
Yeah, I mean, it was like Roseanne did that, I think, in the second season. Still my daughter, still, as opposed to we're making a cast change and now you're the neighbor. It was a challenge just to kind of get her to blend and get everybody to have some history with her, even though they didn't.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So
I mean, it looked great, but yeah, I just had to wonder. I'm like, that
she was terrific. But she's an example of this actress. I loved watching her, and she did a bit role on a Hot in Cleveland one, so I was so thrilled to see her get a series regular. But she was one of those actresses who just always surprised me, always surprised with the way and they started writing to that. She had a rhythm, that she brought, and the writers started writing to it.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. That's really cool to hear.
Yeah.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Andy. All right. So I'd love to bring up let's bring up the great John Fiore. John, great to see you. Happy
Great. I love
to
that.
see you. Hey, John, good to see you, man.
Hey, nice to meet everyone. Nice to see everybody. And Andy, pleasure. This is great. Thank you so much for doing this. Really appreciate it. It's a great Monday. So I have a question. Back when you were doing Spin City, how was it working with, because I'm friendly with Charlie Sheen. So I'm just curious what did you think back then? How did that work with the whole thing? He was different than 2.5 Men.
I'll tell you briefly the Charlie Sheen story. I never directed Charlie Sheen in Spin City, but I directed a pilot. I'll tell you how he got Spin City. I directed a pilot with Charlie the year before with Gary Goldberg, the writer of Spin City. And it was a great cast, Terry Polo, Joe Pantoliano.
Right. Great.
Group of people. It was about cops and detectives and that kind of thing. And he was, DreamWorks produced it, and he was great. He was happy to be there. He was really enthusiastic. He was completely putty in my hands,
right.
And was willing to and he was so good in this that when the whole idea of replacing Michael came up, Gary just said, Charlie's great,
Right.
And I have to say, though I didn't do the show when it came back to LA with Charlie, I know for a fact, because I obviously knew the cast so well, that they loved him and they loved the enthusiasm he brought. And I remember, I did the pilot for Anger Management, which was
okay.
And I remember saying to Charlie, I said, Charlie, there are a lot of people on your side. Now, Charlie has since done some,
Right.
Charlie's a very complicated.
Sure. No, I'm close to him, and Mark Berg and all them too. Yes.
But he is also, I think, a brilliant comedian. And, the interesting thing, you watch Charlie, there's an example of, people thought of him for years, in dramatic roles, but he found a comic rhythm, and it's very, and
funny.
And where's Joseph?
I'm here.
There you are, right in the middle.
I'm right here. Yep.
It's actually small. What Charlie does is small.
Yeah.
Okay. His comedy is very understated. He's always behind the line, if you know what I mean, instead of on top of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was, Charlie's work on this pilot got him
a gig. Good.
And then got that, and his work on Spin City got him 2.5 Men.
2.5 Men. Yeah. I didn't know you did Anger Management. That was an interesting show. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. So,
thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, Joseph.
John. Thank you, guys. This is so wonderful. I'm going to bring. I would love to bring up Julie. Julie, I'll bring you up here in just a second, and then you guys are so nice. Don't be shy. If you have a question, we're amazingly making really good time. And Julie, I've just brought you up. Julie, it's wonderful to see you.
Hi.
Julie, with one of the best mics in the crew. Julie, tell everybody who you are, and
I'm Julie Selzado. I'm a retired New York City detective. I was a writer back in the 90s. I wrote the scripts and I had an agent, the whole 9 yards, and then life takes off, and now I'm back.
Julie was one of the first female homicide detectives in New York City, and has been featured in many, Narcos had a little feature on you. And amazing career, actor and singer as well, too. Yeah.
So my question is, I love comedy. I wrote a comedy years ago. What do you think the difference is between American comedy today, not back in the Big Ben Theory and Seinfeld and Raymond times and the other stuff, to the comedy that's coming out of London, out of England, like Mrs. Brown's Boys and.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. I'm married to a Brit, And yeah, we have a home in England, so we spend a lot of time there, and so I'm exposed to British comedy a lot. And I did a movie, a British movie that was, except for Burt Reynolds, that was actually except for Burt Reynolds and Charles Durning, was all Brits. You know, the funny thing is, like, there's a misconception about British humor. Everybody thinks British humor is, you know, a very kind of that kind of Hugh Grant kind of like, ah, shucks, kind of, you know. but I mean, God, the Brits can be so over the top. I mean, you know, some of the British humor is really big and really broad and would never go over here.
Yeah, that's my point. Yeah, I think comedy here has gone down. Yeah, everybody's afraid to say things.
Yeah, it's a little. We've gotten all very subtle and single camera, you know, too. That's affected it too. You know, I think that when comedies, when shows here that aren't comedies started being called comedies, that hurt comedy.
Yeah.
If you know, I was judging the Directors Guild Awards a few years ago, and I was asked I was in the final panel to pick the winner, and I swear to God, I looked at the episodes, and I don't remember exactly what they were, but they weren't funny. It's not that they weren't good; they just weren't funny.
Funny, yeah.
You know, and I think that the bar or the definition of comedy over here has really changed. You know, I mean, you know, Miss Maisel is, it's a great show, but that's sort of where we are.
Toned down.
Yeah, you know, as opposed to The Big Bang Theory, big difference, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Julie. Good to see you today. I look forward to working with you later tonight. I want to bring up, let's see, Julie. I'd love to bring up Georgia T. Willow. Great to see you today. I'm going to add a spotlight. And hi, Georgia. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Super happy to
Hi,
be here.
Georgia.
Hello. So I'm Georgia. I'm in Joseph's masterclass, and I can see why he talks so fondly of you. You definitely align with what Joseph teaches and preaches. So thank you so much for being here. My question to you is, what is your favorite thing about directing? Why directing?
It's the schmoozing. No, my favorite thing about directing is, I mean, I obviously love the interaction, you know, with the crew and the cast. I've always just gravitated toward camera crews. I just think they're just such great people, the crews, and it's amazing what they do. But I think my favorite thing is just seeing the reactions when something is complete. You know, whether it was theater and just standing in the theater and feeling that audience reaction, or being on a sitcom set and hearing that laughter, or being in a movie theater. I just love the whole process of creating something that then affects people in some way. I remember years ago, I was asked to play in a celebrity golf tournament. Okay, and it was John Elway's, who was a football player, tournament. And I accepted just because I wanted the free trip to Colorado and to meet all these athletes that were going to be in it. But I was a little embarrassed to be the celebrity. And I thought these 4 guys that were going to play with me, that paid all this money to be, you know, in my group. I said, they're going to see who? And I have to tell you, I was doing home improvement at the time. I remember standing on the first tee, and there's this crowd at the first tee, and, you know, they introduced me, and I'm thinking, oh, this is so embarrassing. And literally, I mean, screams of, I love Tool Time. Oh my God, say hello to Al. Oh, people were just like going nuts, you know. Then this was the middle of the country too, you know. And I mean, I was like, oh my God, this affects people. This is, you know, this has an impact. So I like that part of it.
That's great. It's
Thank
beautiful.
you, Georgia. Great to see you. I think I have time for another question or two. This is really moving briskly here. I would love to go to Solveig. Solveig, I'm going to bring you up here in just a
like
second.
that. Solveig. Oh, wow. Thank you for having in your little title there how to say it.
It definitely helps.
Oh, yeah.
For
Solveig.
sure.
I can't, although it looks a little bit like Solvang in, that town, that Danish town up in Santa Olivos or wherever it is, up Santa Barbara County.
Solveig, tell
And it's
everybody
got
where
the
you're.
Ibsen character.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Solveig, tell everybody where you're from and introduce yourself for a sec, please. It's such an interesting story and background.
I'm from Iceland. I studied acting in England, and then I moved to America. I'm now in New York, and I'm in Joseph's masterclass, like Georgia. And I did a sitcom a few years ago. I did 2 seasons in America, but the American humor is very different from Northern European humor, which is more like making you so tense and uncomfortable that either you puke or you laugh. So I find that I'm craving more examples and learning more about the whole multicam situation. So I was mostly curious if you had like an all-time favorite performance or an all-time favorite episode where you're like, this is the holy grail that you wanted to share with us.
That I did or that I've ever seen?
Either. Just something that you see and it makes your heart pound. It's like, this is funny.
Of a sitcom?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, I can't, 650, it would be hard to, there were so many episodes of Home Improvement that were just sort of iconic in their day and so funny, because of, some of the stunts that we did. And I just something that popped into my head was, we got like a 45-second laugh once. Tim was going to his wife's college reunion, and he had this great idea of an invention it's called a suit in a pouch. And it was a suit that, it rolled up and got and the whole build up to it, she's going, a suit in a pouch, how is that going to work? Because it's brilliant, and it's ready, you just put it on. So we get to that scene, of course, where there's like, all the people at the reunion, and Tim enters and he's wearing this brilliantly wrinkled, from every particle, wrinkled suit. And as he walks in, the audience starts to laugh. And it was literally like a 45-second laugh. It just did not stop. And when you get something like that, and those are the days of the booth, and it's like, I didn't know where to cut. I'm cutting it to there and there. It was truly hysterical. Whether that episode was the funniest, I don't know. I thought when he bombed went to the Air Force Base and rode a tank over a golf cart, that was pretty funny. We had a lot of really, really funny stuff on that show, So he blew up the Gidget house. That was, that's always good fun.
You guys, let me know if you find that episode and share it with us, or throw it in the chat so we can actually watch that one. Solveig, thank you.
I'm doing a DGA mentorship program now, and my protege, who herself is already an established director, she asked me what was my favorite episode or something. All I could think of was actually the first episode of Home Improvement that I did, because I was telling her how I thought I got the job. And it was like, my advice to her was, you have to do something that stands out. So with directing, sometimes it's a shot. And I had a camera shot in this episode that, again, got like a 30-second laugh. And I am convinced that's why they hired me to do the rest of the season. I was only hired to do one episode. And
what was the shot?
the shot was, long story short, the young son has a girlfriend, and his girlfriend goes away for the weekend with her family and says, would you please take care of my goldfish for the weekend, but make sure you feed him. And he says, don't worry, I'll feed him. Then we come out of commercial, and there's a shot of a goldfish floating on the top of the water, and then you rack focus, and then looking in the goldfish bowl is the kid, like so forlorn. And so my protege wrote to me. She said, I found that episode and I watched it. She said the shot was brilliant, and so it's more like there were moments from shows that I remember so well. But you want to see a great episode of television, truly great. The last episode, I think it was either the last or second episode of the series episodes that Matt LeBlanc was in. One of the funniest episodes of television I've ever seen. I mean, laugh out loud funny.
So they do.
I think that whole series is laugh out loud funny, but it's either the last of the last season or the second to last. You can get it on Netflix or something.
I've seen the series, but I don't think I've seen the last season. So that's good to know.
It's either, I'll make it simple for you. It's either the last episode or the second to last. And I mean, it is beyond funny.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Solveig. Would love to, the time we have, we'll try to make it work. I'm going to bring up April Holmes. April, welcome. April, so exciting because April just shot your first series lead in a multi-camera, 45 episodes last spring. Congratulations again to you, and I'm so happy to see you today.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. This has been so amazing and so enlightening so far. So my question is, you earlier mentioned that it's really important for directors to be able to direct and communicate with their actors, but not all always are the best at it. And as an actor, do you have any advice if you're on a set and you feel like you're not really getting direction on how to open that door of communication?
Well, I mean, it's hard because if the director is just not capable of it, and there are those that aren't capable of it, they're technical directors, or they're just moving the camera around. I mean, the first thing you do is you try to create a dialogue, with your director and see what you're going to get. Say, I'm a little fuzzy about this moment or this scene. Can you help me understand kind of what they're going for with the writer, and then you'll know like that. It's like,
yeah,
brick wall. It ain't happening. And then, beyond using your own wonderful instincts, and I always I hesitate to say this, but find a fellow actor in the cast that you trust, and I don't love actors directing actors, on a show. Okay. And yet I know it goes on, but sometimes I think that if there's someone experienced or someone you trust, it's not like, how do I do this? But it's like, again, starting a dialogue with them because, years ago, I worked with Patti LuPone. I don't know if you know who Patti LuPone is. She's a big Broadway actress. Yeah. And I did Evita with her, and she was difficult. She was really, really difficult. And Mandy Patinkin was in that show, and they were like, and I remember she said to me once, she said, we learned at the Actors Studio from John Houseman. He said to us, as an actor, you're in it alone. You're going to have to survive. Okay. No one's going to help you. I mean, this was Kevin Kline, Mandy, that school, Robin Williams, they were all taught like everyone's your enemy. No one's going to help you. And it was like, oh my God. And I said, no wonder you're like this. You don't trust anybody. But the grain of truth there is, you do have to trust your instincts. And there's always help somewhere. It might not be from the director.
Thank you.
But April, thank you, April. I'm assuming you had a great relationship with the team of your show.
Oh no,
correct?
the team that I did the show with was amazing. I don't know if you know Shannon Flynn as a director, but she's done a lot. But yeah, I had a great team there. It's just some other projects I've done that I haven't always known how to politely say, like, I'm not really getting much direction. Is it just because you like what I'm already doing, or?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't quite phrase it that way, but I would say you want to get feedback, so you could just say, are you getting what you want? Are you getting what you want in this scene? And we're just checking in, and rather than I'm not getting much direction. Yeah.
That's a great thing. Are you getting what you want? I mean, for anybody in the room, it's just a really simple way to say it.
Yeah.
Thank you, April. We'll be quick. So, sorry. Yeah, I know there are plenty more questions. Andy, I know you have your class, but you're, as always welcome to come watch the work here. I'm going to go to Cameron Abel-Brannigan, Cameron, I know you just moved to Los Angeles. So what I'm going to do is let me add the spotlight for you, and let me.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
Hi, Cameron.
Hi, everyone. Good to see everyone again. It's been a couple weeks, but glad to see you all again. Hi, Andy. How are you?
Good, Cameron. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. All right. So my question, I won't waste any time. So, with all the projects that you've seen, all the projects that you've been a part of, what was a project that didn't get produced that you would have loved to see come to life?
Well, it was actually the pilot I did with Charlie Sheen. It was called, I can't remember what it was called now. Like I said, it was a cop show. The long story short, we did this. We had this phenomenal cast. It was really good, but it was produced by DreamWorks, which was Jeffrey Katzenberg, and it was made because Gary had that relationship for Disney. So it was DreamWorks for Disney. The problem was this was right at the height of Jeffrey Katzenberg and Michael Eisner and Disney in a lawsuit against each other. So to this day, I don't understand, because we could have gone anywhere with it, why we took it to ABC, which was Disney, as opposed to some other network. And as it turned out, it was as simple as the fact that Michael Eisner wouldn't even look at it.
Oh.
He wouldn't even look at the pilot. And so we ended up redoing it a year later. Now Charlie was gone doing Spin City, and it was called Battery Park, with a different, Elizabeth Perkins was in it. It ran for about a year on a different network. It wasn't as strong a show. It wasn't as edgy and funny a show. So, yeah, that was always the one that got away.
Yeah, there's always one, isn't there?
Yeah, there's always one. But it's funny because it worked out for Charlie, didn't it?
It did.
Because who knows if that would have, had the success that Charlie had on 2.5 Men. So.
Yeah.
It's like I've been in many situations, unfortunately, where network producers, whatever, in a pilot, and we've had to let actors go, which I hate more than anything. And I've literally worked with on Man with a Plan, Matt LeBlanc's most recent show, and I went in to direct that, and I had forgotten that I had done a pilot with one of the actors, with his wife on the show. She said, you fired me. I was like,
oh God.
I said, well, first of all, I didn't fire you. Okay. But I was on the pilot where Idina Menzel was fired. So it's just, but I always like to tell about the people, the story about, who was it that got fired from Frasier? And then, Lisa Kudrow, I think, got fired from the Frasier pilot. It was it's Frasier and Friends. There was some symbiotic thing there. And I just said, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. But, you know, the big success is right around the corner.
Gotcha. I love that.
Thank you, Cameron.
Thank you. Thank you.
Andy, thanks for hanging out with the community today. I'm so grateful to you for taking some time out of your schedule and family. I know how busy that is. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for the challenging questions that are, you know, sometimes hard to answer, you know, but anything I can do to enlighten or inform, I'm very, very happy to do it.
Thank you.
It's funny, I would go from looking at this group and then to all the eager students that I'll have from 6 to 10 tonight.
Wow.
As they try to unlock the comedy.
Yes.
So, yeah, I was just on a Zoom office hours with a student just before this, and that was all about. She says, "I don't know if I know how to unlock the comedy tonight." So,
did you just leave it like, "Hey, we're going to unlock it," and they have to figure out how that works, or did you?
No, they have to figure it out, but it's very class participatory, and
cool.
Everybody gives their feedback, and you know, with her, in a case like this, and I say this to directors, and it's true with actors too. What do you find funny about it? Okay, if you don't find it funny, if it isn't funny to you, how are you going to make it funny? And so it's really important as an actor, as a director, to find what makes you laugh about the scene or about the character, and that helps. Or that helps a lot. I always say every actor needs to know their character's comedic perspective on life. And it's the ones that have that really interesting perspective those are the ones that will stand out.
Sound familiar, guys?
Uh-oh.
No, Andy, thank you, guys. Thank you all, the community, for coming and hanging out and supporting the conversation. And Andy, thank you for being so kind and such a good friend of this community and taking such good care of me over the years. Thank you very, very much.
Joseph, and